Good evening, everyone. Just going to wait a second here to let everyone get into the webinar here. And a lot of numbers are climbing and climbing as we go. So this is awesome, but welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight. It looks like we're starting to slow down a little bit. So I think we are just about ready to get started. And again, hello, my name is Sandy Cardoza. I am the Associate Director of Parent and Family Relations with Johnson & Wales. Welcome to our second exclusive family webinar, part of the virtual orientation program that we're offering this summer. Really great to have everyone tonight. The focus of tonight's conversation is residential life, which in any regular year is a super hot topic. Lots and lots of questions related to residential life. So we are anticipating lots from you tonight as well. Just to quickly go over a couple of Zoom features so that you can understand how we would like to run this tonight. If you take your mouse and you kind of hover over the bottom of the black box on your Zoom screen, you can see something called Q&A. If you have a question that you want to ask of our panelists at any point, we would ask you to write them into the Q&A and we can get an answer for you. Another option, if you see the chat feature there, that's another option. You can open the chat and feel free to type in a question there. We're going to look to the Q&A first just because that's a little bit easier for us. If a lot of you end up talking back and forth with each other in the chat, we might miss a question. But let's just quickly try a chat real quickly just to make sure everyone has found it. So we did the same thing last week, but how about if everyone in the chat tell us where you're watching from tonight, your home city and state? And then we'll have a good idea for people found the chat. So there's one from North Providence, Shrewsbury, Mass, Texas, New Hampshire. Here they come, Georgia, Virginia, wow, all over. I think I saw Maine in there, Colorado. Wow, folks from all over, so that's awesome. We're happy to have you with us. The last option, again, if you click on participants, hopefully everyone has a participant button there. You click on that, again, over to the right now. If you're looking over the right above where the chat is, there should be a feature that says raise your hand. Am I right, Kara? Are you seeing that? I think we have that feature. So if you want to try raising your hand, we can also give you the option to speak your question out loud. So again, you've got Q&A as an option, the chat, and raising your hand if you'd like to speak to us. All right, so I think those are the main Zoom features that I wanted to mention there. And at this point, I want to allow the folks who are with me tonight an opportunity to say hello and tell you a little bit about their role in the call tonight and also their role at the university. So we'll start with Kara.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kara Bruno. I am the program coordinator for the Office of Student Engagement. I do a lot of fun things with that office. I get to do a lot of fun things, primarily working with our student leaders, specifically our University Involvement Board, who plans events for your students on campus, which we are planning on doing in full force this fall. It might just look a little bit different. So encourage your student to get out of their residence hall at any time and or virtually attend one of our events. I think a lot of our events are going to be in some form virtual and awesome as always. So I'm really excited to see your questions this evening. But I will be sort of in the back end doing tech, so you might see me disappear at some point. That's my role today.
Awesome, thank you, Kara. And we also have Dr. Caitlin Cotting with us tonight. I'll turn it over to her to say hello.
Hi, everybody. My name is Caitlin Cotting. I serve as one of our assistant directors of residential communities. So my job is to oversee a group of halls. My current responsibility is all of the halls that are on our Down City campus. And so I manage the professional staff, the student staff that work in the halls, and just kind of maintain daily operation in a sense. I'm also responsible for all the hiring and training of our staff that work in our department as well.
Excellent. Thank you, Caitlin. And certainly not to be overlooked is our student representative with us tonight. Michael, why don't you say hi?
Hi, everybody. My name is Michael Baines. I'm a rising sophomore. This past year, I lived on campus. I'm a member of our orientation team and as well residential life. So I'm just here to provide some of my student perspective on any questions you might have tonight.
Mikey, which orientation college are you working with? Remind me. What?
I'm in the College of Business, so I'm a
College
marketing
of Business. So if any of your students have completed their online, their OT meeting yet, they might have actually had Mikey as their orientation leader. So, all right, well, that's awesome. So this is us. We are glad to take your questions, and I actually see some already coming in the Q&A, which is great. And I'll start by sending some of those right now over to Caitlin. So Caitlin, first question, can you clarify what quarantine will look like for students moving in from high spread states?
Sure. So students that are coming from high spread states, so I think if you want a live update, you want to visit the Rhode Island health.ri.gov website /COVID, and there's a full list. Right now there's 36 states on that list, including international countries. And so anybody coming from those locations will need to sign up to move in the 11th or 12th of August. And we are going to do our best so that people can move into their fall placement. If somebody's moving into a space maybe that's occupied currently, because we do have some students here this summer, or maybe there's too many students moving into a space and we want people to quarantine safely, they will remain in their space for 2 weeks, and then they will be able to kind of go out and about and then go to class. So we will monitor students for those 2 weeks. We will check in with them. Staff will be in the halls. I think that was actually one of the questions. Our resident assistants will already have arrived, and our front desk manager team, like Michael himself, will start working the following week. So they will be there, and someone will be there 24/7 for them if they have questions or concerns or just need someone to talk to.
Great. So it looks like you started to address Charles's question as well. You've talked about front desk, but would the RAs will be on site also once students start moving in?
Yes.
And the fridge is in the room. I think I know the answer to that, but you want to take that also?
Yeah, so we work with a company called Microfridge. So in all of our traditional halls, which is where your first year students are living, there will be a Microfridge unit already in the room. You are welcome to rent that unit, or if you don't want to rent that unit, we will pull it out of your student's room in a couple weeks into the year, and they will already be there when you arrive. So again, you can then choose kind of in the first couple weeks about whether you want to rent it or not. But you'll want to visit mymicrofridge.com, and that's where you can select Johnson & Wales as a campus, and then you can specifically pay to rent those units.
Okay. The next question regarding conflicting information, whether or not students have to quarantine once they have a negative test result in hand.
Yeah, so the information on the Rhode Island Health website, the way it's written, it says 14-day quarantine, or you can have a negative test result. The negative test result is more applying to those who might be here for a temporary stay. But because our students are moving in and going to stay with us for several months, we are requiring anyone coming from a high-risk area to quarantine with us for the full 14 days.
Great. Judy's asking about the 1 hour move-in. So I know obviously we love move-in day, right? And it's an event in and of itself. But maybe you can talk a little bit, Caitlin, about why ResLife had to make the decision that you did, as far as, you know, the whole move-in situation, the limiting to 1 hour. She's asking specifically, is that just to get things out of the car?
Yeah, so definitely different than what we've done in the past. I would think most everything this year will be that way. So because of the number of people, we are trying to do our best to space people out and not have a lot of people coming and going. So everyone is being asked to sign up for a 1 hour time block. And that is really the time that the student and their two guests, so over the age of 18, they can bring students' belongings into the building. And then after that hour, truly all the other guests will be asked to leave. And we just can't have the extra people in the hall. So time slots will kind of run from 9 a.m. I think till 2 o'clock in the afternoon. And so we're trying to space people out over several days. And so there's just not a lot of congestion in the elevator and the stairwells and coming and going from the building.
Okay. Question about freshmen live on campus. Do sophomores have to?
So currently we do have a sophomore mandate. Due to COVID this year, we've had a lot of sophomore students asked to move off campus because of whatever reasons they wanted to, and because we have had to change our housing sizes. So we've had a lot more singles this year than we've had in the past. We've granted those releases and allowed sophomores to move off campus.
Mikey, I think you said you're off campus this year, correct?
Yeah, so I actually will be living off campus this year as a sophomore. This wasn't necessarily due to COVID. I just wanted to put that out there. It was just a personal preference for myself.
Got it. And I know this isn't a specific question yet, but can you tell the folks where you lived last year as a first-year student and what your experience was like a little bit?
Of course. So I lived in the Xavier Residence Hall. That's close to the Xavier Academic Center. It's a little bit further from Gaby Commons, which is our main green on our Down City campus. Personally, I really enjoyed living in Xavier. It is the residence hall with communal bathrooms, but personally, I find that that's the first question that always comes up. Are the communal bathrooms an issue? I don't find they're an issue at all. I know they are regularly cleaned in the morning, somewhere around 10 in the morning. I'm not sure what time they're cleaned at night, but I never had any problems with anything like that. I find that the Xavier Hall was overall a pretty good experience for myself personally.
Great. And that's definitely, you mentioned it's the hall with the communal bathrooms Down City. I think we have at least a couple on Harborside with a similar setup there. So there's a question here about percentage of incoming freshmen who are going virtual. I mean, I don't know if any of us have a firm answer on that yet. And I think this question makes me think that we should definitely acknowledge that how this situation changes by the day, it seems. Right, Caitlin?
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, before you all joined us, we were talking about how where we were in June, only the state of California would have had to quarantine when they arrived to campus, and now there are 36 states on the list. So I don't think this was the world we thought we were going to be in. So we're trying to kind of go with the flow and make our best decision so that we can open in the fall and have a successful year on campus.
Yeah, and I do want to say, I think it's important to keep in mind that some of your students will be having some classes that are virtual, even if they are living on campus. Because I know for myself, I'm enrolled in 5 classes for the fall, and one of those, or 2, I believe, are actually going to be held solely online.
Okay. Yeah, I know there's a variety of class setups that are being explored in order to give students maximum exposure with the professor and hybrid situations. Not to get too far ahead, but next week actually the topic of our chat on a Wednesday night will be strictly academic. So anything related to classes and things like that next week for sure would be the time to log in for that. But so a reference, you might have referenced the 11th or 12th. Somebody's saying we were told the 16th or 17th.
Yeah, so I apologize, not trying to cause more confusion. So 11th or 12th would be for those places that do have roommates. So a lot of students at Xavier have roommates, some in Imperial, McNulty, and Snowden, but there are also a lot of singles. And the reason why we did that is in case, me and Sandy are living together, I have to quarantine, but Sandy doesn't. We want to make sure that I can get there and arrive and quarantine for 2 weeks, and then Sandy can arrive and we will all be okay living together. So that's kind of why the earlier date for those that have roommates. So sorry for the confusion.
Okay. And New Jersey on the list. I mean, you probably don't have it memorized.
Well, I know the states in the Northeast are pretty good. So New Jersey is currently not on the list. So hold strong, New Jersey.
But are we advising folks to continue to check that list often in case
things updated every couple of days? Right now, New York, New Jersey, Mass, Connecticut, kind of all of New England are on the good state list, I'm going to call it. And then a lot of the rest of the country, as I said, 36 states are in the higher risk zone.
Wow. Okay. Auto turn off cookers like Instapots, air fryers, etc. Allowed, not allowed?
So in a lot of our traditional halls, we ask that you not bring kind of a lot of cooking equipment. For specifics on all of those items, they are in our guide to on-campus living. In our traditional halls, we also don't permit independent microwaves, toasters, things with hot open coils. Think fire hazard. Is that normally why we don't permit a lot of that stuff?
Okay. Will has a question about, will they have access to food? So Will, I'm not sure if you're talking just about students when they come early during the quarantine period, or you're talking about, once students are here a little closer to when classes are starting. But in general, we can confidently tell you if we've got students on our campus, our dining services is ready to feed those students. So absolutely, they will have food while they are here on campus.
Correct.
All right, let's see. And I hope I'm not jumping out of order on these questions. Do students have to stay in their rooms maybe when they're in that quarantine period?
Yeah, so we ask that they, I guess, stay away from others as best they can. And so stay in their room. We have had some students who had to quarantine before starting their summer session. So they would go outside, they might go for a walk by themselves, but they will have to wear a mask at all times. But we ask that they not, go out into the general public. They kind of stay in their room and or right outside their building.
Okay. So there's a question here. We're on that list, but move-in is on the 16th. So, I mean, lots of times what we will suggest to folks on these types of calls, Caitlin, is if it's a very specific question about their own family and student situation that maybe you would need to look into, that their best bet is to contact the office directly. I don't know if you have general information about that could address that question.
Yeah, I'm not sure the direction of that question. Again, if it's in regards to you needing to quarantine and you don't have a roommate, that would be the 16th or 17th. So I don't know if that's what it's about, but if there's more information, I'd be glad to try to answer it if there's more information, or you can give our office a call as well.
Perfect. And Carol will definitely put the contact information for Residential Life into the chats, both the email and the phone number. Be advised that obviously they're getting lots of calls, so they're getting back to you as quickly as they possibly can, but it might be a day, maybe into a second day or so before you hear back. But so look for that in the chat. So Andrew, great question here about activities that are being planned for students who move in early, and whether or not they're going to have opportunity to be introduced to other students. So I'll address that a little bit in terms of from the orientation perspective. And Mikey can speak to what's happening in OT meetings. That's a big part of the OT meetings. And we, if your students have done it yet, they might have told you, we've specifically asked them to unmute their camera so we can see faces and have students starting to recognize some of their classmates. We are looking at a number of activities, if you will, that can be offered in, for instance, like a walk around the bay with appropriate physical distancing and whatnot. We're looking at a number of virtual type activities that try to keep students interacting. We've had bingo, we've had trivia already that some of our incoming students have already joined those things. So we recognize how important it is for students to make connections at college. Again, in just any given year, it's even more complicated this year, but we're not giving up on that. Anything specific to Res Life, Caitlin? Are the RAs doing anything to try to foster connections in the buildings?
I mean, our arrive, they'll be started to go through training on the 9th of August. So they'll be going through different training protocols and things, and then they will start planning different programs and different ways to connect with students. So since our students will start to arrive on the 11th, they will definitely have some things planned so that students don't feel kind of alone in their space.
Great. All right, John. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
As well, yeah. I think it's definitely important to encourage students to get more engaged and involved in their orientation sessions throughout the summer as well, because I find it super important for them to maintain connections not only with their orientation leaders, so someone like myself, but also the other members of their orientation group. So because of COVID, obviously there will be some restrictions to what events can and can't be held on campus, but a lot of great interaction does come from these Zoom meetings. So I think it's really important that you stress that to your students.
And can you just touch on, Michael, what you all offer to the students as far as staying in touch with you? How, what type of information do you give them?
Yeah. So I know personally, I do myself and my orientation partner, as well as all the other members of our orientation team, do offer different methods of contact. So for myself, that would be my phone number, as well as my Instagram, some popular social medias and things like that, just to reach out whenever they would like to, or if they feel comfortable doing. And we also encourage students to share those same social media in the chat, like the same function that you guys have here. So.
Excellent. All right, lots of questions. Let's keep rolling. Can't students have a COVID-19 test so they don't have to stay in quarantine?
Unfortunately, that is not the policy we're abiding by. So in terms of the state, they're asking us to enforce the 14-day quarantine because that is the safest way, knowing that a test could change from one day to the next couple days.
Okay. And Mark is asking, if you live in a high-risk state but plan to be in a low-risk state 2 to 3 weeks directly prior to coming to Rhode Island, do you still need to get a COVID test?
I don't want to answer that question and be wrong, so I will put that one out there. But I will say my assumption is to say if you come to Massachusetts on August 1st and you hang out in Massachusetts and you don't have any symptoms, then you should be okay to move in at a later date.
Okay.
But don't hold me to that one.
Is that something that your office would be able to answer for them, or would they check with health services?
Yeah, they're really the ones that are kind of setting up all the protocols.
Okay, thank you. Question about the costs on the micro fridge. I'm seeing on the parent and family social media that some people are saying it went up, although
it might have been adjusted, right? So previously we were on a trimester system, and so there was a trimester cost and then there was a year cost. I believe this year for the smaller unit, it's about $170 for the year. And then there's a larger unit, which we would normally recommend for, like a triple and a quad. That one's $270 a year.
Do we have any triples and quads this year?
We do not.
Do not, okay. Mikey, did you and your roommate use the micro fridge?
Yes, I did live in a triple though, so we did opt to get the bigger micro fridge, and we thought that worked well for us, but it is pretty big, so I mean, whatever option is best for these students.
And I know sometimes families ask about how to split the cost. Is that something you and your roommates did?
Yeah, we all just split it. We all split it 3 ways. I know I paid for it specifically, like with my own credit card, but I just had them send me the money as well.
So the roommates reimbursed you, which seems to be, because I think the company only takes one credit card number or something like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, definitely something to communicate with roommates about. Yeah. Can they bring their own fridge, or this person's asking, are they correct that you can bring your own fridge?
Yeah, so you can. It needs to be below 3.2 cubic feet, I believe is the size. That's also in the guide to on-campus living, but you cannot have multiple units. So if like say you live in with a roommate and they decide they really want that micro fridge and you really want your fridge, you cannot have 2 units in a room. And you cannot bring a separate microwave. So if you really want a microwave in your room, you really do have to do kind of the rental combo. And it's because it's one plug and one turns off while the other one is operating to save energy as well.
Okay. So I think you probably just answered this one then. Lisa's asking, do baking and pastry students need 2 fridges? But they couldn't, right? They can only have 1 in the room. Yeah, I don't know, Lisa. I mean, that's wonderful if they're baking all kinds of goodies that they can fill a fridge like that, but it sounds like in each resident hall room, they're only allowed to have 1. So hope that helps there. Elizabeth, students who are not required to quarantine, is there a requirement for getting tested?
I would have to direct you to the welcome page. I don't believe there is a flat out requirement to get tested, but I would have to direct you to that page. I'm not completely sure.
All right, and Kara, I mean, I'm sure a lot of families are familiar with that Wildcat Welcome site already, but we'll ask Kara to put that in the chat as well, so anyone who doesn't have that handy can connect to that. Carol, my state, Maryland, has under 5% positivity over 2 weeks. Why is Maryland on the early move-in list?
So Rhode Island is taking their 5% state infection rate list, and that is from the Johns Hopkins University data. So again, that's where Rhode Island is getting their data from, and that's where Johnson and Wales is determining their state list. So besides that, I'm not sure.
Okay. Paul does not have a room assignment yet. He is a freshman transferred from Denver. Welcome to Providence. Can you share more timing for room assignment? And they are from a high spread state.
Yes, so we have quite a few students that are transferring from our Miami campus or our Denver campus. And then we also have some freshman students that were planning and originally coming to the Providence campus that are still in what we would call guarantee me a bed. And that means they will have a bed, but we are kind of working through student by student about placing them. I believe you can still select a room, and we're doing our best to try to get people a room in time for them to arrive for their space. Again, it might be the day before, but again, if you come from a high risk, sign up for that move-in time. And again, if you move in and you end up living in a single instead of a double and you come in on the 11th, we will work with you. We understand that this whole thing is fluid, and again, we will do our best to work with everybody on an individual basis.
Okay. Alicia is touching on something that is important to, especially first-year families, about wanting to be able to help set up the room. So do you have any tips maybe about how folks can maximize their time to be able to have a little bit of time in the room to help with the setup?
Yeah, so my best suggestion is try to pack light and pack easy so you can kind of get stuff into the room, and then try to unpack maybe some important things. So you can maybe take some pictures, maybe the bedding stuff, so you can take some nice pictures and hang some things on the wall. But we do really have to stick to the 1 hour, because then the next group is coming in and we do not want to, create large crowds. And that's really what we're trying to avoid.
Okay. I think that's a good suggestion. Like maybe think about having the bedding accessible, because I know me as a mom, I always wanted to make sure the bed was set up. Do your mom too, Mikey?
Yeah. No, the bed is the most important part of the room. Make sure that is set up. But I do think the hour is, personally, I think the hour is a good amount of time. I don't think it ever took me more than an hour to set up my room.
And some students are ready for the folks to be heading out the door within that hour. So
yeah,
it's us parents and guardians and loved ones who struggle with that. All right. Having picked the last day for move-in, since we're not coming from high-risk state, if we get added to quarantine list, how can we arrange to change our move-in date?
I would say email us at reslife.pvd, and then we will work with you individually to adjust those dates. Because I don't know if within the system, if you can go back in and pick a new date. I think it's kind of a one-time pick.
Okay. Gabriella, it sounds like you've got a complicated situation here with your student, international student who hasn't gotten their visa yet because of the lockdown on embassies. Has a visa appointment on the 19th, but by that date, he's supposed to be here. Is that one of those situations where they need to communicate with your office and health services directly?
Yeah, and probably international student services, because I'm not sure what communication has gone up from them.
Yeah, definitely, Gabriella, if you or your student haven't been in touch with international student services, that's a go-to office for sure. They can probably, or not can, but I think they would definitely assist you with anything related to an international.
Yeah, regardless, we will work with you. If you can't arrive until the 19th and you still need to quarantine, again, we will work with you. We will make sure your student can arrive here and get settled. But again, it's going to be kind of a one-on-one support in terms of your student.
Correct. Okay. Elizabeth says they have not received an email about signing up for move-in slot, and they went into the portal and they only see 4 dates there, 11, 12, 16, 17. She's saying they don't need to quarantine. Will later date be available, and when would they receive that communication?
So students, I want to say last week, received an email from us asking them to log back in, even if they'd already picked a room and agreed to our housing contract. They were asked to log back in and review our updated housing contract and sign that electronically. And then, so if your student has not done that, then you would have not received the email that said, hey, now you can go pick your move-in time. So Once your student does that, they will then receive the next step, which is to pick their move-in time.
Okay. So you might want to make sure your student looks for that. So Wendy's asking, can you come back with groceries, store pickups after that 1 hour is up?
So for the summer, we allowed people to come back in and bring more items back in. That was because we had a lot less students here. So for the fall, we won't be able to do that. If they want to go to the grocery store and then maybe drop some stuff off at the lobby and your student can come down and get it and bring it up to their room, I think that's the most that we could allow because we don't want the extra guests back in the building. But it needs to be after all the move-in time. So I think the last move-in slot is at 2 o'clock. So you're going to want to make sure you come back after 3 o'clock to just kind of drop some more stuff off.
All right. And Karen, questions about, being a booted off campus is the way it's phrased here. No chance to walk around campus, no access to bookstore. That is not what we are trying to achieve at all. I'm not aware of any limitations to folks walking around outside and around campus. Are you, Caitlin?
Just really the residence hall. Yeah.
Okay. As far as the bookstore, they are going to be with us in 2 weeks on the 29th, part of auxiliary services. I'm imagining that the bookstore may have maybe limits to the number of people who can be in the bookstore at a certain time. I'm just speculating, but we can get more specifics from either Molly or Pat, whoever's on with us on the 29th. So Karen, we hope that your move-in day is a good one for you and for all our students and families, and we are all going to work to make it the best that it can be for everyone. So we appreciate your understanding. Can we go back and support a child setting up a room? So I think you've already touched on this. And she's even saying, can't we even close the door?
Yep, unfortunately, we once your student moves in, we really are not allowing additional external guests, and that is so that we can do our best to, kind of keep the community as safe as we can. And so unfortunately, we can't allow additional people to stay longer.
Right. And our situation, I don't know if you have had time or any of your colleagues to talk with colleagues from other colleges, but I would imagine this is not unique to Johnson and Wales, that colleges across the country are facing things like this.
Yeah.
All right. Jim is asking, how are we handling the parking situation for move-in day and moving forward if your student's bringing their car?
So most of our buildings, at least on the Down City campus, are kind of on city streets. So you will have to kind of pull up and find parking, unload, and then you can move your car. Your student, if they would like to park on campus, they would have to pay for a parking pass. And so you would want to go to the parking website. I don't believe they're live just yet. When I looked earlier today, I did not see you could buy one yet. Parking primarily is located on the Harborside campus. That is where we have our kind of mass large lots. So even if your student does live downtown, they will have to park their car there unless they find another lot in the city where they can park their car.
Yeah. And we do cover that a little bit during orientation as well and give them a little bit more information on parking. But the primary reason is that for Down City, our garage does not house overnight. So
Right.
all students would have to park on Harborside and then take the bus to the other campus.
Mikey, did you have a car your first year on campus?
I did not, but I will be bringing my car this year. So like everybody else, I would just have to buy that Harborside pass.
Sure. And did you get around just fine without the car, or?
Yeah, I found that, I didn't really need it. I feel like bringing it now is just a preference in case I'd want to go somewhere off campus, not necessarily on campus. I think the bus service is really great, and everything's pretty much in walking distance, especially if you're on the Down City campus.
Yeah, and even Harborside students, they can take the Wildcat Wheels Down City and walk to all those same places that you're referencing there. So
Definitely.
And the train station is only a 2-minute walk from one of our residence halls. So you can always take the Wildcat Wheels to one of our residence halls and get the train to go home. And a lot of students will do that as well. So
Yeah.
easy access.
I think you already touched on if they don't want to rent the micro fridge. What was the size of the fridge that can be allowed?
Yeah, 3.2 cubic feet.
Okay. And no microwaves. The only microwave that's allowed is part of the micro fridge. And the other part of that is that if there can't be 2 refrigerators in the room. So
Right.
I'm sorry, that question, it's already hidden. I can't see the question, but that student would want to confer with roommates also to make sure that there's have to be 2 in there. Once your student is moved in, can they leave campus to hang one last time with families? Precautions taken, of course.
Yeah, I mean, the only place we're really limiting people is in the residence halls, the additional kind of bodies in there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, Heather, we want you to be able to have those important hugs and goodbyes. So, all right, Tina's asking, are there microwaves available in the dorm gathering areas if a student does bring their own fridge?
A couple of our halls have a community kitchen. I'm not sure what their access is going to be this fall. We haven't really discussed that. McNulty and Imperial Hall, so there are microwaves there in those community kitchens, but all the other halls do not have a community microwave.
Okay.
But there also are other spaces like the den, for example, that does have a microwave. So just to put
You
that
could always make friends with your neighbors and use their microwave if you don't want to rent one too. People do that.
For sure. Melissa's saying, she's basically asking, coming from a high number state, will parents have access to their student on campus during that quarantine? Can families get laundry cards, driving passes, etc. during move-in? Or will that still occur a weekend before classes begin? So like, when are students going to be able to get their laundry cards and things like that?
Yeah, so all of our halls have either multiple laundry rooms or one large laundry room in each community. When they check in, they will receive a laundry card from us, and the company that we work with is called Automatic Laundry. So if you want to kind of peruse their website, you can. You can either put money on their laundry card. Typically, most of the lobbies have either a cash machine or a credit card machine, or you can actually log onto the website and pre-purchase, and then your student just has to load the money on in the machine in the lobby. So you could do it in multiple different ways. Like if you're at home, you could pay for 20 bucks and then they can go and load that money on their card at school as well.
Okay. But I think she's also getting at, like, if a student happens to come early as part of that quarantine group, it's not like they're not going to be able to get a laundry card because they're.
Oh, no. They'll be given it when they check in along with.
Yep. Same thing with like student IDs, parking passes. I know, and I don't know if it's been posted yet anywhere, but my understanding is that different offices are trying to figure out ways to get things to students so there might not be the typical long lines that would happen, say, waiting for IDs or something. Have you heard anything about that, Kaylin? No. Okay. But rest assured, Melissa, your student will have everything that they need. Colleen, for Iowa testing sites, they're estimating 72 hours to 6 days for us to receive testing results. If we have proof of getting tested, our results haven't been sent to us, will we be allowed to move into our room, or will we have to wait until we get results back confirming negative results?
If Iowa is on the state list that Rhode Island requires to quarantine, they're still going to have to quarantine regardless of whether you have a positive or a negative COVID test.
Okay.
So I don't know if that answers it, but.
Yeah, that's a lot, Colleen. Maybe look at the more detailed information on that welcome site, and certainly follow up with health services if you have additional questions about that.
Yeah. healthservices.pvd@jwu.edu is their email.
Thank you. Elizabeth is asking how many students will be in the labs for the baking and pastry arts majors. So I would imagine you don't have the answer to that, but our colleagues in the
15.
12 or 15.
Yeah, I think all of the classes were limited 15 to 20, whether that was a baking and pastry class or a traditional marketing class.
And what I would also recommend, Elizabeth, if your student hasn't done their academic meeting yet, make sure that happens. And families are invited to sort of watch along with their student, and families can even ask a question if they're feeling the need to do so in those academic meetings. So that's a great opportunity to talk with someone from the College of Culinary Arts directly and get that answered. If you don't have to quarantine, what is the approximate move-in days?
August 26th through I think August 29th are what's being posted.
Yeah, I think that was in your email from, was it yesterday or 2 days ago that you sent that email? It's already becoming a blur.
Yeah, I don't know. Within the last couple days, that was.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
Will you make PPEs like masks and gloves available to students, and or should we pack supplies for them?
Do you know that answer? I believe students will be provided at least a mask to go to class, like a generic one from us, but I don't know much more of that question.
Yeah, my understanding is students are encouraged to bring a supply if they are able to, because we're recommending that the masks, for instance, be washed. So they'll need more than maybe 2 or 3 to get them through day to day. I have not heard anything about gloves. I would say probably check that welcome site. I know there's some information in the online orientation module as well, but again, the welcome site would have a lot of that information as well. So Mark is asking, what mental health supports or activities will you have for students who are doing the 14-day quarantine? Do they have to stay in their room the entire time?
I think Kara talked about, or you might have talked about some activities, and Michael as well. Our RAs will definitely be doing activities. I know our counseling services are very aware of that this is a stressful time and an additional stressful time, asking that people kind of stay in their rooms. So I know they will be there as a support. And again, if a student needs something, they truly just ask. We will be here. We are asking that they do their best to kind of stay as much in their room and try to stay away, because we want to make sure that we reduce as much risk as we can, and then be able to kind of open and allow people to make more connections once the quarantine is over.
Yeah, and also during our orientation sessions, we are giving students the resources and explanation about our counseling and health and wellness services, which you can all find through JWU link. So I'm sure your student, if they don't already know all about that, they'll know a decent amount after they're done with their orientation.
And I would imagine it's something that the RA team is learning about and being prepared to work with students as well, Caitlin, and those types of things.
I mean, it's a change for everyone, even our RAs and FDMs who've worked for us in the past. You know, they're used to just kind of hanging out and all chatting with each other all the time. And unfortunately, that is going to have to change a little, right, as we all kind of work through this new environment.
Right. Okay. Melissa, I see your question again. The struggles with that 1 hour for move-in. We hear you. We understand. She's asking, what if they need to run to Target? I mean, they can. We're not stopping them from heading out with the family for places like that. It's just the family will not be allowed to re-enter the building with the student. Okay. How can we reserve a move-in date and time? My son got an email yesterday saying he would be able to do this today, but we're not sure how.
I believe if they've already signed their housing agreement, they should have instructions on how to log back into the housing application and select kind of where you're coming from, and then it gives you dates and time options.
Okay, so definitely have your student, Glenda, check their housing portal and see if they have that information there. Question from Lourdes about Snowden. Has bathrooms, does it also have personal showers?
Yes, so all of Snowden and McNulty has bathrooms in the rooms, and the showers are kind of a tall stall. So you also want to bring your own shower curtain. Think tall and skinny shower curtains versus like a tub shower curtain. Yeah.
Do you want to talk quickly about the bathrooms and showers at Harborview? Because that's a little different, right?
Yeah, so Harborview is a tub. It actually was a former hotel that we have renovated. So those are a tub. You'll need to bring a shower curtain for that. East, South, West, and Xavier are all community bathrooms, and they have multiple bathrooms and multiple stalls on each floor. Imperial, if you're living on the first floor, that is community bathrooms. If you're living on the second and third floor, those are bathrooms within your room. And again, it's a shower stall, so you'll want to bring your own shower curtain for that.
So Harborview is the only one where it would be like a standard home size shower curtain, a bathtub type shower. Yeah. Annabelle, do both roommates have to arrive August 11th?
If both come from a state that needs to quarantine, yes. If not, that's why that one person is being asked to arrive on the 11th, and then the second roommate will arrive on the 26th.
Okay. So Heather's question here, if a student has a roommate, are they now in a larger room that would be meant for a quad or triple? Maybe you could speak in general about what's happening with the room configurations to
Sure.
ensure proper distancing.
Yeah, so we have pretty much measured every room across campus. Our facilities team spend a lot of time doing that. And so if it is a larger room where students were able to sleep 6 feet from each other, they did big like circle sixes around all of a student's space. And if they were able to kind of create that space, then we would have put 2 people in a room. But a lot of the rooms don't allow for that. So that's why there's only 1 person in a room. So some of those rooms were triples and quads. Some of them were just larger size doubles. They kind of really varied across campus.
Okay. Lori has a good question here as far as what's happening in January. Could, some of those rooms that were originally meant to be a double, let's say that might be a single, will there be a roommate moving in a situation like that come January?
I don't know. I think the only thing I'm aware of now is that we're going to continue until potentially there's a need to make a different change. So
yeah, and then who's to say if the government would even allow more dense situations with people and whatnot. So we'll see, Lori, we'll see as it gets closer, and yes.
It's just as successful as the fall.
Right, definitely. Alicia's saying her daughter is living in McNulty. She's alone. I was informed it's a double room. Will she be getting a roommate? If not, will all furniture still be in the room? So I think you already talked about why maybe it's only 1 student in the room, but what's happening with furniture?
If it is set up as a double, then you potentially will get a second roommate. And it could be one of these other students that doesn't have a room just yet. So we will be hand placing someone if it's listed as a double. So rooms that we might have had to downsize, we will try to remove some of the furniture, but I would say plan that additional pieces will still be there because we just don't have the storage room to pull out a second set of bed, desk, dresser, chair, and a wardrobe out of hundreds of rooms on campus. So some students might end up with 2 extra long twin beds, and then they can make themselves a king size suite and they can enjoy themselves in their room.
All right, Judy, somewhat a repeated question, but in describing quarantine, there was nothing addressing whether or not the students literally have to stay in their rooms for 2 weeks. How are they supposed to eat?
Yeah, so we would like them to remain in their room as much as they can. They will be allowed to go out and get to the dining hall and grab a to-go box and go home. They can hang out outside, but we ask that they not hang out with other people. Make sure they're physical distance, right? We want to kind of wait out these 2 weeks to make sure that they don't end up having any symptoms, and then they can kind of go about safely as they would otherwise.
All right, Judy, hopefully that gives you some information there.
Ideal.
Dwayne, sorry?
It's not ideal, we know.
No, I know. And I mean, well, I was going to say it's probably good that even if they're on their own, just try to get a little sunshine, but I don't know, maybe we're discouraging that. But all right, Dwayne is acknowledging the list is changing daily based on 5.5% positivity. Are you going by what state is on it today?
Yeah, I mean, if you pick your move-in date and time today, and your state is not on the list and then it ends up being on the list, we will have to make an adjustment to make sure that you can move in on time in quarantine, or vice versa. If you're on the list and you end up not being on the list.
Okay. Pam's asking, once students are on campus, do you know how often testing will be? So if you don't have that answer, Caitlin, I'll put a plug for another webinar we have on August 5th. That's when we have wellness at JWU, which will include Catherine Rondo, our Director of Health Services. So she could, I'm sure, answer a lot of these questions about testing, but do you know anything about that?
Mm-mm.
No, okay. So come back on August 5th for wellness at JWU and hear from Kathy, or you certainly can reach out to the health service office to yourself as well before then. Carol's asking specifically about Imperial. Are there common kitchen / microwaves? Do you know?
There's a community kitchen kind of in the basement level of Imperial Hall.
Okay. Andrew, what happens if your state gets added to the list after move-in is selected? Probably going to come up in some situations.
Yeah, I mean, my assumption is that we will reach out and verify. As we know, the list has changed from yesterday to today, so it will be an ever moving target. But we'll have to adjust your students' move-in time.
Okay.
Either you can email us if you recognize it, or I'm assuming we will also be reaching out to students as well.
Great. Dwayne is bringing up something from the email that referenced that students can quarantine off campus. Can you quarantine in another state and then arrive after the quarantine period?
I think that's similar to the question someone asked before. They were going to be traveling in a lower risk state. So I would say yes, based off my knowledge. But again, that is definitely a health services question. Or if there's more specifics on the Rhode Island website, I don't know if it details that out. But if you are in the state for 2 weeks and you have no symptoms, then you can move into campus.
Okay. Jackie, you have a question here. Will dining halls be open for eat-in during the fall term or only grab and go? Believe it or not, we, Amanda from Dining Services has joined the call. She wasn't scheduled tonight, so she's not late, but she was able to join us. And Amanda, can you speak to that briefly about what's happening with dining in the fall?
Yes, good evening, everyone. So I'm Amanda Rattani, Director of Dining, and we are changing every single day, like Caitlin said as well. There will be, as of today, for fall, there will be in dining options. So at some of our locations. So currently we're open for the students that are here for the summer lab. So we're doing a trial run of this with less amount of students on campus, so it's really great. And we do have Red Sauce, our Harborside location, open with dine-in options. So yes, and I do want to clarify something about the quarantine. The students will eat. We will have a plan and we will share the plan towards the end of this week. So I just want to clarify that, but your students will eat. That won't be any issue, I promise. We never want anyone to go hungry. But how they get their food or where they get it, that is still up in the air. So I just wanted to clarify.
And Amanda will definitely be with us in 2 weeks on July 29th. So start making a note of all your dining related questions now, and she'll be glad to field them on that day. So what activities can you recommend now besides the OT sessions, the orientation team meetings? Mikey, do you want to talk about anything else that's going on?
Sure. So if your student accesses the JWU Involvement Network, we actually have a list of events, which are all virtual right now, only because most students aren't actually on campus. I know this coming week we have trivia, we have scavenger hunts, things like of that nature. Some of them are hosted through Zoom and others through different programs, but they're all very interesting. So I would definitely encourage your student to check out the Involvement Network.
And I think also when students do, whether it's their OT meeting, their academic meeting, or if they join the student panels on Monday afternoons, to not be hesitant to get involved, right? To unmute themselves and ask questions and join the conversation.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
Mikey, I don't know if you can see this, but there's a question specifically here for you. What advice would you give to new students as the fastest way to start connecting with fellow students when they arrive on campus?
So specifically for resident students, I'm not sure if the residence halls will operate, in the same manner this year, but traditionally in the first couple weeks, it could even be the entire school year. Students will leave their doors open. So that's just kind of like a sign that they're willing to meet new people. They want to know the other people on their floor, in their residence hall. So I think that's a great way to just kind of put out there that, hey, I'm really interested in meeting the other people around me. Another method I know was super popular was putting their social media literally on their door. So if, for example, your student uses Snapchat, they could literally put their Snap code onto their door, and anybody who passes by that door can whip out their phone, add that person on whatever social media. And I know that was a great way to develop, friendships and things like that. Other than that, I would definitely encourage them to attend any events in person on campus that are available. I know for myself, I met a lot of students through going to sports and other things like that. So if they're operating in, you know, whatever capacity, I would definitely encourage them to go to any sports games and things of that nature.
And virtual events, if a
Yeah.
lot is virtual, to give that a chance and join those types of things as well. And I don't know if Caitlin, you have a thought, but when he suggested leave your door open, I want to say when you're in the room, right? Like Director Rose
Off the
would,
door otherwise, yes, please. We also have our building hall council, so it tends to be a programming board. And again, it'll probably look a little different, right? People will probably have to wear masks and be spread out in a room, but we still want to plan events and create a community, right? This is your students' new place. It's their new home. And so we want them to feel comfortable in their new home, and that is getting involved on their floors and meeting new people.
great. Tracy's asking about over-the-door bath towel holders. Do those work, or are command hooks better? Do those private bathrooms have toilet paper holders?
Yes to toilet paper holders. McNulty and Snowden are cement buildings, so just think about that when you're trying to stick things to the wall versus Xavier, Imperial, East, South, West, Harborview all have sheetrock walls, so it's a little different, but the command hooks tend to work for a lot of things that might be hanging on the wall. I don't know if they do have a towel hook, so like a metal hook in Imperial and not Imperial, Snowden and McNulty and Imperial. I don't know about Harborview.
Pamela, you're referencing your son, a culinary major. Are there separate orientations for every program? And for students moving in August 20 to 24, what will orientation look like? So the online orientation, there's one module for every student, but maybe 3 or 4 pages into it, they are able to select their college, and that's where they get some specific information. So for instance, he would get specific information to College of Culinary Arts students. Similarly, when he joins his academic meeting, that would be just focused on the College of Culinary Arts.
Yeah.
All the other information is universal, applicable to all students. So I hope that answers that. Melissa, what is Imperial Hall like? How far from campus are there common areas?
Yeah, so Imperial Hall is located at 15 Hospital Street, and it is about, I would say, 2 blocks from our Center for Science and Innovation building, Johnson Hall, Starbucks. So it's actually probably a quicker walk to the Starbucks than McNulty or Snowden is downtown. It's a smaller community of students. Like I said before, some of it has community bathrooms and some has private bathrooms. There are some kind of loungy spaces in each of the hallways and the floors, and there's also a very large basement space where there's a ping pong table and a television, and there's a smaller study room downstairs as well, and then the community kitchen. So it actually has quite a bit of community space for the kind of the small size of the building.
Okay. Judith has, her student was initially a first-year student for Miami. What would her start date be? And she still has not been assigned a room.
So like I said before, we are working on those students that still don't have a room. I would say if you are coming from Florida, plan to move in either the 11th or the 16th. And we are trying to address those students that will have to quarantine as soon as we can so they can start making plans.
Okay. Do a lot of our students bring bicycles, and is there a place to store them?
Do you know that answer, Michael?
Personally, I have no idea. I don't know that many students that do bring bicycles to campus, but I do believe there are, bike racks near Gaby Commons.
That's true. Yeah, I'm not sure about the numbers that actually bring. There are not storage inside the buildings, I will say that.
Are they allowed to have them in their residence hall room?
I think so, as long as they are not blocking their ability to get out of the room. So if it's making the room too congested and someone cannot get out in an emergency, we would not allow them to store it in their room. But if it's in a corner and it's out of the way, then it's okay.
Okay. Lisa's asking a question here. Plan is for students to remain home after Thanksgiving. Will there be an adjustment in the meal plan cost for the semester? So specific to meal plan. Oh, Amanda's back.
Surprise. So meal plan, I believe that is in the works as well. So financial services does everything about billing with meal plan, purchases of meal plan, all of that. But because we're allowing students to come back earlier, we're also starting the meal plan earlier as well. So there's a little bit on each end. But I would follow up with financial services just to be sure.
Okay. Judy, I'm reading your question here. I don't know if you can see it, Caitlin. I'm thinking, Judy, you might want to contact the office directly with a lot of the things that you're bringing up there. You know, again, about the time allotted for the move-in, RAs with engagement in the dorm. How will students eat? Amanda's talked about that some. I don't know if you want to address any of it right now, Caitlin, or have a direct conversation with this.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've touched on quite a bit of it. I think there's going to be a lot of different things. Again, not everything is fully planned just yet for the fall. No one, if your student arrives on the 11th, then come the 20, I don't know what 14 days later is, the 25th, they're able to go out and interact. I mean, I'm assuming they'll be able to kind of stand in their room and greet people too as they come and go. You know, we want to do our best to kind of make sure that they can then go to class, and that is our ultimate goal.
And we certainly, like you've said, Caitlin, we know this is not ideal. We recognize it may be more of a challenge for some students than others. And I would definitely encourage all of our families that if your student is having, you know, if they're struggling with anything, encourage them to talk with us, or just to voice that to someone so we can help, or at least just even, you know, give them a smile or something. Just, you know, if we don't know that a student is struggling, we might not, obviously we wouldn't know. So I understand the anxiety that I'm sensing in some of those questions there. Having a car on campus, we talked about that. It's allowed, it has to be on the Harborside campus. There's no overnight parking down city. COVID test takes longer, isn't available right at the 72 hours prior to move-in date. Like, if, you know, and I'm even seeing that on the news that testing is taking longer in some areas. Is that something they talk to your office, Caitlin, or health services if they're testing results?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not aware of there being a testing requirement to move in, unless Amanda knows something different than I do. Yeah.
Okay. Amanda Yazenia here is asking if you could just repeat the food situation, like whether or not students go into dining halls, or if it's dining hall takeout, or if they have to fend for themselves.
Yeah, so for the quarantine students, so anyone arriving, we have students arriving at every time, I feel like. So I'm gonna say, I think it's August 11th, right? Is that what we're at right now for the incoming? So it is my understanding, and this could change Friday, so that the students will not be able to go into the dining hall if they are quarantining, but we will feed them. So they don't have to fend for themselves. We have been working with students. As I said, we have students on campus right now that are here for the summer labs, and we had students start arriving June 29th, maybe, through the same sort of quarantine that your students could potentially do as well, and we did it very well. So we did it with a smaller number of students, but we got the practice in, and we worked with students individually if people had dietary restrictions, if they had some preferences. I wouldn't say that when we're talking about a few hundred, that every preference is going to get answered, but we do take allergies and dietary restrictions very seriously. So that is all good. So yes, your student will eat, I promise. They won't go hungry.
Yeah. All right, so before we go on, I want to acknowledge it is 8:04. We usually do these for an hour. I'm okay with staying a little bit longer. Caitlin, you good? Everyone else good? Michael, Amanda? Let's try to do this rapid fire at this point and see as much of this as we can get through.
Yeah.
So will those common kitchens be available for use?
Right now, I believe they will. I'm not sure if that's going to be the final ultimate answer.
If a student is virtual in the fall, planning to move on campus in the spring, are they guaranteed a room come spring?
So if your student is not joining us for the fall, they're in essence going to like lose their fall assignment. And then you're going to want to contact us October time. And then your student will go back in and select another room for the spring, because most likely there's going to be different options open for the spring.
When students go home or move out at Thanksgiving, do they need to empty the room or can they leave things over break?
The only students that we would ask that completely move out are if they're not returning to us in the spring, whether that's an internship or whatever other decision they might be making. But otherwise, they can leave whatever items they want, lock their door, and then come back to their room in the spring.
Okay. If student has not received a res hall confirmation, a room confirmation, does that mean she does not have an assigned room?
I would assume yes. We do have a lot of students that are on what we call guarantee me a bed, which is like a long list of people that we still need to give assignments to. And we are kind of working with each of them one-on-one. As we have spaces that become available, we will slowly put people into those rooms. So have your student keep an eye on their email. If you have more specific questions, give us a call and we can talk you through your student's kind of account and situation.
And Annabelle, you brought up the schedule in your question as well. She can poke around on JWU Link under the academics tab and look for her schedule there. It's not, that's not uncommon. I'm sure there are a number of students that don't have schedules yet. It's important that she's done her placement testing. Schedules are built throughout the summer, but tell her to keep watching in the academics tab. In Harborview, cabinets in the bathrooms.
I really don't know, to be honest with you. That's the one building I don't manage, so I do not know.
That would be a great question, Lisa. If you are in the Wildcat Parents and Families Facebook group, post that in there. You'll probably get lots and lots of feedback. Or Amanda, did you have something to weigh in on that?
I think they are. So we had students in there. So I was like just being nosy looking at the room like a few weeks ago. And I want to say that there's like the tall cabinet, maybe. Am I making that up? That's like tall and skinny in the bathroom?
Well, that's the wardrobe. Every student gets a wardrobe as part of like sort of their.
No, but I think it's like built into like the bathroom. But I could be wrong. I'm in charge of food, guys. So sorry.
But put that in our Facebook group, Lisa, and you're gonna get lots of feedback. So does the quarantine start when we arrive in Providence or when the student moves in?
So you have to quarantine once you land in Rhode Island. So if you're choosing to come to Rhode Island and maybe stay here for a week in a hotel, because that's your choice, then that's 1 week. And then you'd have to quarantine for 1 more week before we would kind of allow your student kind of go out and about.
Okay. This, I don't know if you can see this, Caitlin, from Cynthia. My daughter originally confirmed to room with another New Jersey student. School changed the room, put my daughter with someone from a quarantine state, while other New Jersey student got her own single. We're trying to change so that quarantine student can have own room and my daughter and the original roommate share. So, I mean, there's probably a lot involved with that, but go ahead.
I will say from maybe your original room that someone picked back in the beginning of June all the way up until August, things can continue to change. And there's a lot of reasons. Some of that is people ask for a room change. Some of that is you know, some students picked a room and then never signed up for classes. And so we say, hey, if you're not coming here in the fall, you know, you can't have your room, kind of a thing. So some students have moved because of that. I will say at this point, we have stopped doing room changes because we cannot continue to kind of honor those and then also try to plan for move in and make sure that people are moving in a distanced way. So at this point, I believe all students that were still on a room change request list did receive an email from us this evening saying that we won't be able to honor any more room changes at this point.
Do we allow portable air conditioning units?
We do not.
Mikey, real quickly, because I want you to be able to speak. How did you stay cool up in Xavier?
Yeah.
I just brought a fan, to be honest. Like one of those mini fans is usually fine. There are some days where it's a little bit hotter, and my recommendation is literally just go outside because sometimes it can be stuffier inside than outside. So.
Okay. Will parents be able to visit their students at a later date?
Yes, but they can't go in the building. We are having a no guest policy at all for the fall. So they can come to campus and they can wander around outside. You know, you can visit the city, but won't be able to come into the building.
Okay. Looks like Andrew, they're having trouble finding the electronic sign-in on the contract. Tried multiple times.
It should be the last page in the contract, so you might have to hit continue, 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 kind of to go to the last page. That's where it normally is. If you're still having issues, I would say give our office a call and we can try to figure out maybe if it's your account specifically.
Probably same advice for Eva, having issue with the housing portal. Who should I go to for Harbor View? Reach out to the office.
Yeah, give us a call.
All right, I have not looked at the chat at all, but I'm sure Kara's got that info in there.
Yes.
Can the student not leave the dorm once we move in? We're planning on seeing, we've already talked about this. They are welcome to leave and walk around the city. It's just that guests won't be able to re-enter the building with them. I'm guessing anytime after official move-in dates and times, we can come visit our student again in their room. You just talked about that.
Not in, yeah.
High number states, will parents also be required to test and quarantine in Rhode Island regarding moving from Denver campus? Have save a bed, but no other info yet. JWill link still shows Denver housing. Any suggestions?
I would say give us a call. I would assume if you're on our guarantee a bed and list in Providence, that you wouldn't still have a Denver housing assignment. So I would give our office a call so we can kind of look at your account specifically.
All right. How are deliveries being managed to residence halls like Amazon, Walmart, grocery services such as Peapod? Maybe
Yeah, that's a good question. So all of our students, all of our halls have a paper mailbox, and we take all their packages at the front desk. And so if they receive something too large, like a box or a Peapod or whichever, we will sign for it at the front desk, store it at the front desk, and our front desk manager team, Michael being one of them, will send your student an email saying you have a package. If it does say, refrigerate on it, we have refrigerators at the front desk, so we will store that there. And then once they receive an email, they just come down to the front desk, show us their ID, and they can grab their package.
Would they be able to get like pizza delivery?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, okay. That's probably important, right, Mike? Policy on overnight guests. I'm guessing not allowed, but I'll let you speak to that, Caitlin.
Correct. Yep. Just for the fall, at least for right now, we are doing no external guests outside of the building they live in.
Orientation paper says mail opens the Tuesday after classes. Does this include for those moving into quarantine, or will it be opened when they arrive?
So we will start collecting mail. I need to look at a date. Tuesday, I think August 17th. Is that a date that I just made up? Probably August 18th. We will start collecting mail and placing it in the mailboxes in all the individual halls.
Okay. If my state drops off the list, can we reschedule our move-in date?
Yeah, I would contact us in our office and we can work with you to find a new date that works.
Okay. What is the after-hours campus security like? Is there transportation? We've got campus security with us on August 12th, but you want to speak about the hall specifically, Caitlin?
Yeah, so in all of our residence halls, we have a resident assistant that is on call, and they hold an emergency on call phone, and they do rounds of the building and kind of check in with people, address any policy violations. And then they work directly with campus safety and security for anything. Whether it's a student that needs some type of emotional support, do we need to call, counseling services in the middle of the night? Do they need to go to the hospital? Whichever, there's always somebody on call. And our student staff also have ourselves as professional staff on call. So if they have questions, they can call us as well as their supervisors to get more support and feedback. So there's always multiple people kind of at a calls away.
Great.
And,
sorry, go ahead, Mike.
As well, I did talk to the director of Wildcat Wheels, and after 10 p.m. there will only be one bus. I'm not sure how this will be going into effect for the fall, but that is the case right now for at least the students who are dorming with us currently.
Okay. And the next question has to do with transportation also. I love this question. Will the buses be running early enough for students living on Down City to make it in time from baking labs on Harborside? And the answer is yes, they're running, but students, they have to remember it's the city, there's traffic, so they just need to plan. They can't, jump to the bus stop 10 minutes before. They just need to plan enough time.
Yeah, and my understanding is they will be operating on limited capacity still. So you want to make sure, you definitely account for time and how many students might also be waiting for the same bus as you.
Yeah, and even in the first week of class or so, give yourself some extra time while everybody figures things out. But Alicia, I saw your question here. I think you should contact the office, situations where maybe there's an accommodation needed about move-in. So go ahead and do that. Any content you plan to share tonight versus just the Q&A of attendees? So that's a good question here. All answers seem to be covered on the website and other communications. The purpose of tonight really is Q&A because we're able to offer this in person during on-campus orientation. So no, there is not a formal presentation. There's information in the family orientation module. And as the person referenced here, you can find a lot of information on the website and email communications as well. Do we pay for heating when it's cold or AC when it's hot?
No, yeah, your housing costs include, all electricity, Wi-Fi, all of the above, lighting, all that kind of stuff.
I hope Amanda's still around. Dining for Dine and Go, will it be sandwich and chips or a hot meal? Are DoorDash and Grubhub running during quarantine to dorms? Will parents be able to ride Wildcat Wheels back to Down City from Harborside after dropping off student vehicles?
Okay, so quarantine or not quarantine? Okay, during quarantine.
Yeah, are the meals just sandwich and a chips, or are there hot meals like the grab and go?
The hot meals are good.
So yeah, there's a lot of different, so I want to reiterate grab and go. So I know that's been thrown around for the last month or so, and everyone is kind of getting a perception that it is just sandwiches and chips, and that's a lot of families and students. But we actually have a lot of entrees as well. So like beef and broccoli, stir fry, chicken tikka, pork, pulled pork and mac and cheese today, that your students can. And this will happen with quarantine as well to an extent. So we have like pasta marinara, pasta and meatballs, veg stir fry. We do have sandwich options because if you believe it or not, a lot of students will pick a turkey sandwich over some of the other options. So we do have a little bit of everything, but those grab and go meals, takeout, I'm gonna call it instead of grab and go necessarily, once quarantine is over, we still will have those options in the dining facilities, so your student can or doesn't have to eat in the dining facility. So they will have the option to heat up their grab and go takeout meal or entree and bring it back to their room, or they could heat it up and eat it outside at one of the picnic benches at Harborside. So there are a lot of options. But I do believe Grubhub and DoorDash should be able to run just as pizza delivery would. So I don't see that being a challenge. I don't think so. I don't think that would be a challenge.
And then the question about transportation, I mentioned the auxiliary services in 2 weeks on the 29th. Denise from Transportation Services will be here that night, so we can get a confirmation from her on that question. South Hall bathrooms, are they mixed gender? What are the bathrooms like at South Hall?
Yeah, they are identified as a male restroom and a female restroom.
Okay. Do students send a headshot prior to arrival for student ID, or is it all done when they get there? Mikey, you want to quickly address that?
So during their orientation session, students will be given specific guidelines and information about their IDs, so they will all have to be taken prior to coming onto campus.
And that is part of the orientation module as well, with detailed instructions there. So both the family module and the student module. Will students be helping first-year students move into dorms such as McNulty?
As far as I know, that program will not be happening this summer.
And my understanding of that, it has to do with again, safety and less people touching everyone's things and stuff like that. So, but we always encourage families, if you have some type of push car or that helps make the move a little bit easier, right? They're welcome to bring that.
We will have some, and because people are spaced out, there might be more access to them, but we definitely don't have enough for every single student.
Right. Do students control their own heat and AC temperature?
So McNulty, Snowden, Xavier Imperial, They all have a unit in their room. Xavier typically is like one room and it controls several rooms. So don't be the mean neighbor and turning the temperature up on your neighbors. And there's like a limit. So you can't go, down to 50 and up to 85 in terms of the temperature. There's a smaller range, but you can turn it up and down, turn the fan on and off, things like that.
Okay. Michelle, good question here about, you're already asking about releases for sophomore year for your student who's going to be 24 and he's a Marine, inactive Marine. Thank you for his service, by the way. I would imagine you look at, you communicate with students on a one-on-one basis for things like that every year, Caitlin.
Yeah,
So just have him connect with the office for sure. Health services, can they have a Zoom meetup to help address all the COVID type questions? They are with us on August 5th. So hopefully that's soon enough.
we couldn't hear you because you went away.
Oh, sorry. I was looking, I have a list over here of all the future dates. Health Services is going to be with us on August 5th, part of Wellness at JWU. So plan to join us for that Zoom meeting. Fitness Center on Harborside open during this quarantine time. It is students by appointment only, I believe. I'm pretty sure that's the case with that. Assuming due to COVID, won't be O-team students helping bring boxes, etc. Yeah, we just talked about that. Unfortunately, we will not have the people, the volunteers helping out with move-in as we would normally like to be able to provide. Are there RAs on each floor available to help assist the students?
Yeah, some floors have two, but there's RAs everywhere in the building. And even if you don't you don't connect with your RA in your floor, you're always welcome to find another RA in the building as well.
Okay. The halls with community bathrooms, is there a system? Are we limiting the number of students in the bathroom at any one time?
So all of the buildings on campus, academic buildings everywhere, will have signage that indicate the number of students that should be in that space. So even if it's a lounge, it might say only 10 people, the bathrooms will have similar signage. So we will ask kind of that everybody pitch in terms of, monitoring yourself, or if you see the bathrooms crowded, you kind of leave and wait your turn. So we're asking that everybody kind of pitch in and help us kind of monitor it.
Okay. Question about health services and guidance for students who find themselves feeling ill. Definitely bring that question back on August 5th. And this is another whole avenue, but we're also asking the whole entire community to track symptoms and things like that. So that would take us probably into the whole next hour if we go into a lot of that right now, but let's that's a good point. We'll bring that up again. Frequency for community bathrooms to be cleaned.
So typically they're cleaned at least once a day. My assumption is that during the this heightened time, they will be cleaned more than that. I don't know the set plan for the fall just yet.
Yeah, and I did stay on campus a little bit longer than all the other students, and I did notice that they were cleaning 2 to 3 times a day. I don't know if that same will apply for the fall, but I did notice they were definitely cleaning more often.
Thank you, Michael. Way to get room and furniture dimensions. I don't know if we have that published anywhere specifically.
Yeah, truly every building and every room is a different shape and a different size. So we just don't have that much in terms of dimensions. Again, the beds are an extra long twin length. So you can look that up. If they're lofted kind of at their highest rank, they're about 3 feet off the floor. So you have quite a bit of space underneath them in terms of storage. You can put the movable dresser drawer underneath the bed so you can get that out of your way. The desks are a similar height. They're about 3 feet off the floor. So the wardrobes are tall and skinny. They're taller than me. So I'm almost 6 feet tall, so they're taller than me. And they're about 2 feet by 2 feet wide.
Will students get the same room when they come back in January? They would if they're not unpacking all their stuff. So I'm not sure what this one is. Thought you said they would not get a roommate if they currently have a single. I'm not sure what that's referencing.
Yeah, I mean, if your student logs into their portal and it says it's a single room, that will be the room they will have for the fall as a single space. Some rooms are doubles.
Do residence halls, specifically Harborview, have older students or adults also living in the hall?
So all of our residence halls have professional staff members. So those, I would consider those adults, or we have some graduate assistants that also work for us. So they range in 22 to 30 years old. We have some, so those are probably the only older people outside of our undergraduate students.
Annabelle, your question about parents bringing things to your student if you're in town, there's no problem with that. You just will not be able to personally bring it up to their room. So you would have to, you know, meet up with your student and do the handoff somehow that way. Restrictions on students returning to home states during the semester for a weekend visit here and there.
The only time that would cause issues is that they're going to a state that then Rhode Island would require them to quarantine when they return. So that might inhibit their ability to go to class afterwards.
Caitlin, I think you already addressed this, but if the student is virtual for the first part of the year, they no longer have that whatever room they might have committed to.
So if they already picked a room, just because your student might be remote or fully online classes, we are not requiring that you move off campus. If you want to move off campus, you would need to contact us and let us know. So again, we wouldn't automatically cancel your student's room. So make sure you contact us if you are not planning on living with us for the fall.
But if they're staying home and doing virtual classes and they still had a room in their name, they'd be paying for it for the fall, right? Yeah, so you probably don't want to do that.
So let us know if you are choosing not to move in for the fall. Yep.
Guests and other JWU students living in other dorms be allowed to visit. Are students going to be allowed to have guests, even other JWU students?
No, only within your hall. So all outside other JWU students will not be allowed to enter the halls.
Good question here about, you know, how are we ensuring people are actually doing the quarantine if they're required to? I don't know the answer.
Yeah, I mean, so once people arrive, our desks will be staffed 24/7. So we will be addressing people as they leave, like we did earlier this summer. And we're asking people to abide by the rules. If they choose not to, then they might not be able to continue to live with us. So we're really asking everybody to kind of pitch in and do their part, because we want to have a successful year and we don't want people to get sick, and we want to, you know, have a good academic year.
Question about the culinary students and priority with the laundry. They don't get priority. You know, there's an app, I believe, that all students can kind of keep track of what's happening with the laundry facilities, but no, unfortunately, they have to, you know, kind of jockey for washers and dryers just like all the other students do. So, let's see. Ottoman storage cubes allowed.
Yeah, so we ask that you not bring in a lot of extra furniture, right? If there's a, you know, a wooden shelf you want to bring in, or a cart or a little storage bin, that's fine. But things that are cloth or futons or flammable curtains, things like that, we are not allowed to have due to Rhode Island Fire Code. So definitely double check the guide to on-campus living before you buy stuff and bring stuff.
And I may have skipped this one, but so a person saying, if we arrive on the 10th, 14 days before school begins, that's acceptable per comment made by panel. Please clarify. I just want to say quickly that we're handling a lot of questions really quickly here. We're giving you the best information we have at this time. So please, if there's any confusion or anything that you're not 100% clear on, continue to follow up with us for confirmation. Caitlin, I don't know if you want to address that.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you plan on arriving to Providence as a family, maybe, and then spending a couple weeks in the city and then your student moving in. So that would work fine, as long as they are quarantining within the state of Rhode Island for 2 weeks before they move in, if that's your choice, rather than having your student move in onto campus and then quarantine. You can do that.
Okay. All right. So I want to pause here for a second because I'm scrolling ahead. There's still a number of questions and it's just about 8:30. And I know Kara has to log off. So, and I'm not sure if that's going to end the call. What I would like to suggest is that we can hopefully capture whatever questions are remaining in the chat here, or maybe we can suggest that these folks email their questions directly to Residential Life. And I apologize, I know this is always a big topic. We certainly have done our best to answer as much as we can in this 90 minutes. Apologies to those of you who we didn't get to answer your question directly, but please follow up with Residential Life, or you could reach out to Parent and Families as well, and we can help connect you with Residential Life or another office if it's actually a question that's more suited for another office. So any closing comments, Caitlin, before we say goodnight here?
No, I just want to say thank you all. Thank you for all of your great questions. I know this is nerve-wracking. It's a new experience for you and your student and going to college. There will be an adjustment period, and we realize that, but we are here to help your student, even if it's just to sit and listen and talk them through whatever challenges they might be facing. We definitely don't have all of the answers, but we are doing our best to kind of prepare and make sure that we have a great experience as a group.
And Michael, I'd love for you to say goodbye, or if you have any parting words for these families, most of them who are getting ready. I mean, we may have some transfer families in here, but a lot of them who are sending their student off to college for the first time. So any words of advice from you?
Yeah, so definitely I feel like you guys shouldn't stress as much. I promise you, your student is going to do great. There are plenty of programs at our school that will help them, just get out of their shell if they're in one, or, find a new hobby and whatever, So I wouldn't stress about it as much as you guys are probably actively stressing about it, because I know my parents were last year. We were definitely in the same boat as all of you. And of course, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to all the resources we gave you there. But your student will get a lot of information, especially during their orientation sessions. So definitely just encourage them to, be active, pay attention, and they'll get all the information that they need to know for being on campus.
Thank you for that, Michael. And I can relate to your folks that you're describing how they were last year, and the stress that you might be sensing based on some of these questions here. I can relate to that as a parent myself. I have one who's still in college. So, it's a big deal sending your student off to school, and I can't imagine the added complications with your student under the situation, everything with COVID right now. And I know it's sort of being tossed around all over the place right now, but we really are in this together, and we're taking it day by day, and hopefully we as a university community and a nation and all will be able to look back and be like, wow, remember when we had to deal with all that stuff. So thank you all for your time tonight. Again, if we didn't get to your question, please email them to us directly. And we're back. Res Life is back in the middle of August 19th. So if your question can wait till then, and you want to come on back, we can get to it then as well. So, but thank you again very much, everyone. Have a great night, good rest of the week, and stay safe.